So I was talking today on the livestock session, which had an angle towards livestock and net zero. So I just really gave an insight into what we've seen on our farm over the last 4 years as we've gone through our AMP grazing project, which is really a transition from quite a conventionally managed organic farm into what we would call a regenerative grazing system. But what we have got lots of that we can speak about now is a lot of what we've seen around the cattle performance, the resilience of the farm with things to drought and heavy rainfall and even flooding, so we're on a floodplain. So, you know, what we've enjoyed, already benefited from over the last 4 years is our cattle production metrics. We're finishing animals in 22 months. That's on 100% pasture and outwintered as well. So we're not buying in feeding grains or concentrates. Our fertility in our breeding cows always sits around the mid 90%. And that's consistently every year, whether we're in a drought or heavy rainfall. Those things aren't really impacting the performance of our cattle. Likewise with that, the soil, the pasture and the livestock are intrinsically linked. So despite the big drought in 2022, outwintering in some of the wettest winters on record, the productivity of the farm, the biodiversity we're seeing above ground and our plant species, our insects, and obviously below ground and products going with our soil microbiology is really bringing resilience into our system. So even when we were in that drought, you know, our finishing times didn't decrease in the cattle. We didn't have to start feeding conserved forages or buying in food, and the grazing system stood up, and we were still going into grass that was perfectly palatable, good quality. We were leaving a good proportion behind, you know, to cover the soil, to keep it insulated, to keep moisture in there as well. So that was really, you know, the system is what's built that resilience. Yeah, I guess again we lean into the adaptive part of the multi-paddock grazing. Like a lot of systems kind of talk about just high stock density and just leaving a third, tramming a third, whatever. But you know, I think, right, well that's not quite how it works in nature and not how pastures and soil want to be treated at different times of the year. So in the spring, we don't really worry about stocking density or trampling material. It's all about growing as much grass as possible, because if we get into a drought or if we need a good bite to get us through the whole winter, it all hinges on that spring. So we skim it in the springtime. We literally just tickle the tops of the grass. That's obviously where loads of nutrition is. So our rotations are much faster. But still kind of upwards of 30 days. But the pasture doesn't respond in a way that it's had too much grazing pressure. So it really snowballs. You get a huge amount of biomass, we get a huge amount of flowers coming through. Things are allowed to fill out as they would want to. In the summer by then, you know, we have these huge, tall, dense pastures. So if we even get into a drought, we've got a huge amount of food to get us through that situation. We're going to take about 50% then and still leave half behind. But by then our rotations move to 60, 70, 80, even 90 days. So, you know, we're thinking about how is our system best primed to get the most out of our soil, our pasture, and facilitate our livestock in the spring, summer, autumn and winter, whilst reducing costs as much as possible and maximising production.